Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have Sabrina on the show today because I reached out to her to talk about galactic astrology and, in particular, how looking at our charts can help us understand an even deeper aspect of ourselves and how it might show up and how we might embody certain things. So, hello, Sabrina. And I'd
Oh,
love for you to just share a little bit of how you got into galactic astrology. So, not just astrology, but how did you kind of find your way into galactic astrology?
yeah, good question. Well, thank you, Katara, for having me. I stumbled upon galactic astrology through Julia Balaz. I was watching an interview Pam Gregory hosted on her
Mhm.
YouTube channel, and she was interviewing Julia Balaz. And that whole conversation they were having was just like lighting me up. My whole body was coming alive. And Julia mentioned that she has this course, and I just knew, I'm like, oh, okay, it's time. So my history is all in energy work and yoga, qigong, and then galactic astrology is um,
The
where I'm
next
at right
thing.
now. Yeah.
Well,
Merge.
I see there's, some similarities in our backgrounds as well. So I'm also an energy healer. I teach Qigong and I fell into the galactic astrology. Was it with the Pam one? I'm not sure if it was the Pam Gregory video I watched, but it was definitely one where she was talking about, the galactic center and the great attractor or, like the big energies. And I was like, it
Oh,
makes total sense. If we're
yeah.
all working with energy, yes, the people affect us, yes, the moon affects us, but really, if we understand that there's a much bigger galaxy and, universe, surely there are bigger energies at play. And to me, that just lit me up inside from that cosmic and galactic part of me that's like, yes, yes, this is this is the astrology I'm interested in because I always wanted to study it, but I just felt like there was something a little bit limiting, even though I think looking at your natal chart already gives so much information. I really feel connected to, I guess, how a lot of the galactic astrologers work. Like so many of them have different backgrounds and come already with a lot of modalities. Like I see yourself as well, right? Like you're already a healer, but then you're bringing this aspect of it. So have you found that it helps people to understand themselves more? Like what aspect, how do you combine the astrology work with the healing work?
Well, that's been a really beautiful journey, and I know it's still unfolding too, but some of my clients for energy work that have had their galactic report read by me, I'll call their guides in and their star families into our sessions, and
Mm,
a lot of clearing from past karma happens. A lot of amazing guidance comes into the client when they're here, or distance. When I do distance energy work too, it works the same way. I'll call in
yeah.
their star lineages, and it's fascinating what they discover. It's such a
Mm,
beautiful
yeah.
tool. It's been nice to merge the two.
Yeah, I can totally see it. Like,
Yeah.
when you have dots and you're just bringing them together, I'm like, this is it, like some people can
Yeah.
easily be more comfortable with, oh yeah, it's an astrology reading, whatever astrology it is. And then you
Mhm.
bridge that aspect of the guides and, like all of that energy work. So I can totally see it. I think it's a perfect compliment. So thank you for being here. So what I asked Sabrina is actually, okay, have a look at the chart, what pops out. And in particular, I guess the kind of questions that I like to share and help others with is we can get readings all the time, but how do we use it to unearth even more of ourselves? How do we understand some of our wounding if we're looking at wounding? So that we can use that information to embody more of our galactic, cosmic, true self. So that's kind of directions that I broadly, gave Sabrina, and she's one of a few astrologers that I will be interviewing, and this is also to highlight the uniqueness of everyone in the gifts that they are, right? Like, I find that with our unique blend of what we do and who we have come here to be, even though it's the same modality, I feel I can already tell that from what they've shared with me, is everyone has highlighted or looked at very different things in the chart to be like, oh, that is what comes up. So that's why I'm having this series of talks. So thanks, Sabrina, for being the first. So I'd
Thank
love to
you.
hand it over to you and ask you, yeah, what did you look at? How is that relevant? How can it help me? And then as that's just a bridge to why others might want to do a reading and how it can help them to embody more of who they are.
Beautiful. Well, I was so happy to kind of do this with you. And what I wanted to kind of add to the experiment or the fun of it. So before I even ran your charts, because this work is also very intuitive too. We use astrology, but there's so much unknowns that you really rely on your psychic senses to help piece all these pieces together. So when I connected to you, just knowing your name and your birthday, right away, what I felt I can really help you with was going through your moon sign and your Black Moon Lilith. So
Mm.
I seem to be called to go into the subconscious or the deep and the dark. So yeah, that's where I ended up. So I did just a basic reading. Like, I'm just gonna run both your charts because you were born in Montreal and now you're in Australia.
Right.
So I ran
Yeah.
it both times because I'd like to see how they changed, if what's the same, what's different, and how. So I did a little bit of studying like that. So I don't know if you've done this, but so can I just share like a few of your main things?
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. I
yeah.
have done a little bit of work on Lilith. I was in a whole year-long immersion doing women's work, and we kind of use
Oh,
Lilith as, yeah, as what we work with, as our sacred feminine wound. I mean, I want to hear your perspective,
yeah.
but yes, we did look at the Black Moon Lilith and a few other things, which I can't recall right now, but we have looked at it. But I'd love to go into it because obviously it seems really important, for everyone.
Right, exactly. So, just like I guess some of your top three, so like sun, moon, ascendant, right? Those I had to look it up. So your sun is in Aries, regardless of where you are in the world. Your moon is in Sagittarius for both, and I really love that because your Sagittarius moon is such a adventurous traveler positive thing, and then here you are, you went from Montreal to Australia.
Mm.
So just right there, it has this it's part of your identity that you do like to move around, whether you actually move countries, continents, provinces, neighborhoods, or you're seeing people from around the world. So there is this
Mm.
worldly aspect to you right from birth
Yeah,
before
I
you.
traveled 65 countries in between.
Oh,
So
so nice.
I used to
So
work for an airline and I definitely traveled, not for work, but like I always
yeah.
had this wandering spirit in me. It's like, oh, I want to see the world. So when I left Canada in 2010, that's exactly what I did. I'm like, okay, I'm going to manifest my dream job where I can travel. So I ended up working for the airline. And yes, I always make like laugh at that, like, oh my God, I've traveled so much and now I've only left Australia once since being here, but yes, there absolutely is that wandering aspect of
Oh, I
me
love that.
before I
I love
landed,
that.
here.
That is so perfect. So yeah, like just simple things like that. You can't make that up. You were born with it, and here you are living proof that that's indeed how it's going for you. Traveling, bringing joy. Now, one thing that did change is your ascendant. So in Montreal, it was in Leo, and the sun is the ruler of Leo. And what I found
That's right.
so fascinating is now you're in Australia and your ascendant is in Cancer, which is a moon rulership. So you
Yes.
have this beautiful play of masculine and feminine energies based on your main locations of living,
Mm.
and having the sun as the ruler, your makes just the native more outgoing, more confident. You do
Mm.
like positive attention, but really, really beautiful things. A little romantic, and you're very proud. You're proud of who yourself, and you want your partners to also be proud of you. And now in Australia, with the Cancer ascendant, there's this deep compassion element playing out in your role here. There's a lot of nurturing energy. I could feel it just from talking to you. You're very curious. There is a very strong protective element, and sentimental too. So you're having another aspect of you show up with your location being changed. So for
Mm.
anyone who does a astrology reading, whether it's just traditional astrology or galactic astrology, it's you should always run both locations to see what's the same and what's different. So here you're
Mm.
having a different ascendant, which means how you're showing up in the world. So life in Montreal, maybe you were more in the spotlight, or needing like more attention, or just wanting to be more in the public. And now
Yeah.
in Australia, you're showing up in a more sensitive, intuitive, and like nurturing way, where it's like, come, let me take care of you. So
Mm.
it's really interesting. So do you notice that actually? How do you embody that now? Does that relate?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that as a very, very grand summary of the last 3 years, which is how long I've been in Australia, it has been a lot more introversion, a lot more inner, and I also
Mhm.
feel it's been about my journey to connect to the feminine, to connect to all aspects of what that actually means. Energetically, also all the wounds that relate to that. It's like, how do we actually embrace more of the healed feminine energy, and allowing myself to have that softness. So I mentioned that I worked for an airline. So in the past, and I don't know what my chart ruler would have been in the 10 years I lived in the Middle East, because that was the big time before here. But
Okay.
I do feel that big transition of everything is now relaxed more into taking care of myself.
Mhm.
Compassion is a main theme and a big value of mine, and I work with Guanyin, goddess of compassion, quite a bit. So I
Mm.
feel that energy infused in a lot of my being, and still surrendering to it, because I feel like I don't know how much of, whether it's just, the Leo ascendant or other things as well, since we're all here and, trying to be whole and have all aspects, but I still feel that urge to, like, do and, be like, look, we're speaking now. It's probably very
Yeah.
Leo of me to be out here and publicly speaking. So there's still a lot of that aspect, but then there's a huge part that's just needing to surrender to that feminine way, like let things flow, let things be, like come home, be nourished,
Mhm.
everything's telling me to rest. So yes, looking at the two energies like that, sun and moon, I definitely see that it's completely shifted gears. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing. And it is a lot of the integration of both. So just because you live here doesn't mean the Leo energy doesn't exist anymore, but it's like filtering in a more balanced way, bringing it to center, right? So everything you're learning and practicing is bringing you to this point of balance, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So what else is I find so wonderful about your moon is that it's in the 5th house. So we said it's in Sagittarius, but the 5th house is usually, it does involve children and your creative expression and joy. So it's very fascinating to me how you lived that world of traveling, and that brought you
Mm,
joy, and you're curious, and it just, Moon in Sagittarius makes for a very like freedom loving type of person.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the moon to me represents the soul of a person. So we don't often see, we don't see the soul, but we know it's there. So it's like the undercurrent that's with you for all time, that it's always guiding you. You can't really see it, but you just know it's there because it moves everything in your life.
Mm,
And your Black Moon Lilith, to me, I interpret the Black Moon Lilith like a deeper aspect of the moon, and she uncovers some of the wounding and the karma that we come in with. So it's also something you don't see it. The Black Moon Lilith, there's a few Liliths in astrology, but the Black Moon Lilith is not a celestial object, it's
mm.
a mathematical point. So it's calculated the way, I wrote it down actually just to make sure I explain it properly, because it's, it's the furthest orbit around the Earth from the darkest point of the moon. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's called the lunar apogee. So it's going like way, way back into the dark to find your Lilith placement in the first place. So it's bringing this dark aspect of ourselves into our chart to be like, let's look here in this really dark spot and see what's there.
Mm.
What can we unearth?
And so you mentioned that it was about some wounds and things as well. So how does, and let's remind myself and everyone as well. So
Yeah.
how does this kind of wounding, in particular relating to Black Moon Lilith or all the Liliths, how is it different than, say, looking at your sacred wound, like looking at Chiron, for example? How does that differ?
Well, Chiron, yeah, hits, basically everyone calls it the wounded healer, but it's a teacher. So in our chart, every astrological point, whether it's a mathematical point or a planet or asteroid, any celestial body, they're all our teachers, right? And in every teacher, there is a positive and a negative, or like a wounding and a gift. So this is not different than Chiron per se, but it's the really deep unconscious part of the wounding. So it's like so buried in the back that we might not even realize it's there.
All right,
Does
all
that make
right. Let's have a look at that. Now, I've looked at it before, but I can't even remember it. So
sense? I know it's a
it's
lot
so
of
buried,
information.
burying itself again.
Right. And then now we'll get to pair it with the galactic astrology,
Yeah.
which I maybe will be new. But what I found fascinating of your moon placement and Lilith, because as I mentioned, like those are the points that intuitively I wanted to focus on. And then when I go and ran the galactic chart, you have the same stars in these places, some of the same, not all the same. So I'm like, oh, there is a story here. There's a story.
Mm. So
So,
let's just tell everyone. So, what do you mean by the same stars? So, what does the galactic astrology chart say that running a normal, whatever, Western
right.
astrology chart does not have? What's the difference there?
Okay. So in galactic astrology, we're looking for the fixed star alignments that are lining up with the celestial bodies. So sun and moon, we're calling them planets. Chiron is there, the Lilith is there, and your north and south nodes. And we are looking for the fixed stars. So the stars in the sky, we're looking to see what they look like at your time of birth. So now, traditional astrology, we have all the planets, and now we want to go deeper. So we're looking at planets and stars. And you can go even deeper and pull in the asteroids, and you can,
That's right.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's infinite. Like there's so much to discover. So what I really found beautiful, and because I mentioned that the moon is like the soul of the person, it's this part we don't see, but it's there. The moon has Hades in it, in opposition. Okay. And the Black Moon Lilith, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, I want to see where I wrote it down, has a square to Hades in it. So it's the same constellation, but in the moon it's opposition, and in the Lilith it's a square. Your moon is in the 5th house, and Black Moon Lilith is in the 8th house. So they're in different houses, but the same star is showing up. All right.
All right. What does that mean?
Okay.
So we need to know what the meaning or energy of the stars is as well, don't we?
Yeah. So I can kind of talk about the 8th house. So I mentioned the 5th house where the moon is. That's like children, your creative expression. And the 8th house is a house of Scorpio. It's like the house of transformation, death.
Yeah.
It's like a mix mash of things, because it's other people's resources, death, sex, the occult, your partner or marriage, taxes, money, will. So it's like a whole bunch of things that can transform, and that's the 8th house. So having the Black Moon Lilith there, I'm just going to say Lilith to make it easier.
Yeah.
It's in Pisces. So Pisces is a water sign, and I have a Pisces moon, which maybe this is another reason why I just was like gravitating to this point for you. It's very similar to having a Pisces moon, where there's this ability to merge with everything. Like I often see it like water, where we can easily become like meshed with someone else because we're so fluid and watery. And we do have to be careful because we can get lost in those spaces. So there's this, it's a beautiful gift when you have the Pisces moon or Pisces in Lilith. Like it's a sure sign of having psychic awareness. So when I talk about the 8th house, we want to make sure that you are learning to balance it instead of getting submerged in it. Like we don't want to feel like we're underwater with all these 8th house things on us. Okay. So does that make sense so far? Okay. All right. And because of that, though, I do want to ask you if you've ever had a near-death experience.
Not to my recollection. No, not that I'm aware of. However, what just came to my mind now is I've had it looked at before where someone said in my very, very early childhood, like 4 or 5 years old, I might have had some kind of near-death thing, but I'm not aware of it, and my parents never told me. Is that true? So I'm just asking my pendulum, so it's saying yes. So that image just came to me as well. and it feels like it was related to water. So it might have been, I don't know, at a pool or at something like that. So not to my recollection, and I have never talked about it. I might ask my mom in our next conversation, but that's what's coming to
Mhm.
me now.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yes, because typically, or one thing, Black Moon Lilith in the eighth house can represent is having a near-death experience, because it is that house of transformation and death. All right, so the other thing that we can talk about here is, I mentioned Hades. You have the constellation Hades here, okay,
Mhm.
in both the moon and Lilith. And to me, what I see here is a karmic and also a deep wound and trauma. Most Hadian star seeds have fled Lyra. They're Lyran refugees from the Draconian Empire. So deep, deep, deep in our soul, there is a fear of being controlled, being scared, or losing your life. And um, it's interesting that your moon is in Sagittarius, because that is like, I need my freedom, I love freedom. And then Hades shows up saying, you love it so much because you didn't have it at one point.
Mm.
So yeah, and the Hades is in opposition in the moon. So it tells me
Yeah.
that this is a challenge. It does tell me you lived there. You did have an incarnation there, but it is challenging. And same with Lilith, it's in a square, which is a good probability that you live there, but it's really harder to get the positive aspects out of it because there's still wounding around it. So
Mm.
deep in our soul records, there are memories of this trauma from escaping Lyra to Hades because of the Draconian Empire.
Yeah.
So in some way, you might feel like you don't know where you're going, you just have to go, like, okay, because
Yeah.
that's in your record.
You've just like nailed it, which is very interesting. So, again, this is where we might bring some aspects of that galacticness and the stars and what they mean. So, yes, I definitely identify as a star seed and connect to many of the different systems and different energies. And I guess, that interest is how does it show up, right? So
Mhm.
you're saying freedom is a big theme, and 100%. How many times I've actually looked at, okay, so what are my values? What am I helping people with? It's always been freedom, liberation, what are we here to stand for? And I do feel a lot of that kind of warrior energy. Maybe it's fighting for your home or fighting for, just being safe. So a lot of what I feel sometimes is with all this movement of this constant, yes, it's a need and desire to wander, to explore, but in a way I feel like I'm still searching for home, like having landed here and it's a lovely place and I am settling into it, but it's the question of, but I know that this is not where we're going to have babies and, grow old. So it's that question again is, oh, well, where is home? Where can we possibly feel safe? And in some of the journeying just recently, as I dive into these aspects, I have felt, um, I don't know, being a planet or being a consciousness in which our worlds just blew up. So needing to leave that, needing to abandon in a way and find new homes. So that's how I'm relating a little bit to the theme that you're sharing about needing to move and constantly being on the lookout for where home is. So that's really interesting that maybe that's where it is in that star energy.
Yeah, because it's like when we think about the severity, like the impact. So we're witnessing the impact through our own life, but it's like knowing these things about the stars gives us the ability to pinpoint with good certainty. Can't say 100%, but to see that this would have been where the wounding first started. And when you're such a pure soul, like, so Hydean star seeds are so lovely, and they're full of joy, and they're very creative. And so with your placements in 5th and 8th house, it's very well matched. Like, it doesn't feel like that's an accident. Like, that feels like a divine alignment saying, here's a blueprint for you. But now I lost my thought here. But oh yes, that would have been the first time a beautiful soul would have experienced that trauma. And now here we are in this life being like, oh, it's further back in the soul, but it is still here. And so many of us are waking up to, I guess, processing this, understanding this, because we are warriors and we really want to change this or heal this collective wound, even though it's all individually, but it's also collective too, because many of us have similar stories from other stars too.
Yeah. So how does it work with the star placements? And this is a, again, question for me, but question for all. So these particular fixed stars are in those positions, but as you saw probably in my chart, there's lots of other fixed stars, you know, conjunct and, you know, whatever in opposition. So I think some of the positions indicate that we have had incarnations in those places. And so when people identify or relate to their star seediness, would we say that we have energies from all of these systems that show up as our fixed stars in different timelines and different, like, you know, how does that work with how that star seed and fixed stars relate to our starred seed heritage?
Well, I don't know if I have a finite answer for that or a popular opinion on that, but I don't know if there really is like just one you know, star. And it might be possible for some people. I have a lot of Andromeda in my chart, and that always comes up to my heart first. Like, I feel very connected to that. But there is still so much. Like, we're multidimensional beings, and we really are multidimensional because we've traveled a lot. Our one true home is source. Like, so when we go home, it's like, you know, it's done. We're complete, we're whole, and we're a little bit of everything. So I don't know if, like, I don't identify with just one star system. There's a few, like, there's a few that are really dominant in me, and I recognize that. So I think when you get your galactic reading, you know, a lot of times we feel most drawn to one of the stars that we first incarnated to. Like, maybe from source you went to maybe you went to Andromeda like as your first star, and maybe that's why there's like a special calling there. And that could be the home you yearn for, because it would have been your first incarnation. But yeah, many people have many connections and have lived in many star systems, and some of the star systems are actually beautifully connected. Like, from Lyra, you lived in Lyra, but then from there you had to go to Hades. And from there, you might have gone to lots of places, but I'll bring it to this point I wanted to share is you have Cygnus in both your moon and your Lilith as well, and the galactic center, the super galactic center, sorry. So in one planet or celestial alignment, you can have many stars in there. And this is showing us how well traveled we really are. And if we look at someone's chart and maybe there's not a lot of alignments, they can be a newer soul and not had as many incarnations. So a lot of that is reflected on these charts that we run.
Yeah, beautifully said. I definitely resonate with that. I think when I first ran the chart, so I'm also studying to, be certified in this whole galactic astrology thing and combining it with the intuitive reading and all the other, work that I do. But when I first ran the chart, I'm like, oh God, like there's so many things. There was just so many. I was like, how do I even start interpreting it? Because literally, I think, like, because I exported it into Excel and I can just see it was like, conjunct, greater chapter, central, whatever, I was like, there's so many. And I think that helped me, affirm, if you want to call it that, just knowing that, yes, I am resonating and connecting with a lot of these star energies and an understanding. And even if people don't totally grasp the meaning of that, and if they don't believe in astrology, like it's okay, right? Like we look at everything as energy. So if I understand them to be the archetypes of certain energies, it's like, how can I not look at the relation between what each of these star systems and places, what their energy has been, what their story is, and then reflect it back to life and see how, yes, we're absolutely multidimensional and we can't just put everything to, oh, it's just childhood trauma or whatever it is. Like, yes, it is, but how far back does it actually go?
Right.
And in some of the, the healing work I do, some people are just not ready. They're not ready to go back to their, galacticness, and that's okay, right? However it shows up for them is the right place. So I've just wanted to go way back and be like, okay, where does it really come from?
Yeah.
So if we circle back to the Black Moon Lilith again. So you're saying that, yes, this first star of the Hades is there. So how does that influence? What is the particular shade of that in influencing the Lilith in the, was it eighth house you said? I think. Eighth or fifth. Yeah.
In the
So how does that particular star energy influence the Lilith?
Right. And there are two stars I want to just talk to you about. So we'll do Hades first. So that, with it being a square, it tells me this is more challenging to birth through you at this time. But the shade of it, that kind of feeling is that you aspire to bring joy. There's like a deep unconditional drive way back in your soul that wants to bring joy into this forward motion, and you can't escape it because it's like literally sewn into your skin. It's like it's who you are. And with the other star, now this one is definitely more tangible, and you're already embodying it even if you're not aware. So I'm so excited to share this one with you. Your Lilith is conjunct Cygnus. Cygnus is the constellation, usually known as the Dove or the Northern Cross. And the specific star your Lilith is meeting up with is called Deneb or Deneb Adjish. I'm just going to call it Deneb. And it's a very tight conjunction. It's only 1 degree and 8 seconds. So it's very close, and your moon has that squared to Cygnus. So like there is between 5th and 8th
Mm,
house with Cygnus and Hades, you're playing out this amazing role, and in this lifetime you're learning to balance it all. And it's like having Cygnus here is really like a healer's call. And when I went back into history, as far back as I can find, the Cygnus was called the shamanic star, the shaman's star,
right. And I'm
right?
yeah, a little bit of that.
Yeah, a little bit of that, right?
Yeah.
The shamanic star, or and even the warrior's star. And these are
Mm,
things you that have been the undercurrents of your whole life without me ever telling you that. And
mm.
that's how these fixed stars show up. So many times we're already embodying them, but we don't have a language for it.
That's
It's just who you are, right?
And
So
so
this
that embodiment, you're saying it's just the undercurrent because it's the Cygnus and because it's in the Lilith position. That's why it's an undercurrent because it's
right.
so there already.
Yeah, because it's so unseen. Like these
Yeah, got
points, like there's even talk of the moon not even being real. But either way, it represents a reflection of the soul. It's still this invisible force of energy that's in our life. So these pieces are like your invisible soul yearnings really coming out to express. The 5th house is about expressing. And I almost feel like there's a deep call to work with children, not only because your moon is in the 5th house, but because and Cygnus, sorry, used to, or they still do, nurture younger worlds. So there is
Mm,
this calling to help nurture children or the younger and help them embody their sovereignty. And it's so funny that Cygnus is actually connected to our lungs and
mm.
martial arts. And you actually study or teach Qigong. And
Yeah.
it's, again, like so many things you're already doing, already embodying.
Mm.
and and I didn't know you before doing this reading, so like I found out this information, um and it's like, oh, this is it, that's you. Here you are. Yeah, so
Yeah,
and what I love, oh, it gets even better. When we first introduced yourself to me, you mentioned you can channel light language, or there's
mm.
something to do with light language.
Yeah.
So maybe you can explain that after, but one of the Cygnus superpowers, I'm going to say, is the ability to transfer energy. And
Yes.
I kept getting your light language when I was tuning into Cygnus. I'm like, oh, you're transferring energy from the stars. Like Cygnus is working through your soul to give you this language. And it's actually helping heal your Lilith wound. The Lilith
Mm,
in the 8th house makes the actual action of sex can be imbalanced, or money
mm,
money patterns might be challenging for you. But also there's this higher calling, like to be clairvoyant, to transform, to get really deep, because it's the house of Scorpio. and
yep.
and Cygnus has shown up to say, you're transferring this energy
Yes.
subconsciously, or in this, it feels like you're already taking the action steps to make this more conscious.
Mm. Well, definitely the embodiment. And so when I say embodiment, to me, that means how we express these things, right? So how we actually can feel that message of, oh, I do this, transferring energy. Well, how and what vehicle do we choose in order to bring it forward? So yes, the deep Scorpio stuff, I hadn't realized how prominent that sign would mean for me. But yes, it's like all things about the unconscious, walking in the underworld, or, all things taboo, talking about magical things, woo things, occult things, but really trying to shine light that it's not a bad thing, but people fear what they don't know. So I definitely have a lot of resonance with doing that kind of work. And then the qigong lately has absolutely been about, transferring or transmitting energy. And my wonderful master, who I've been trying to convince to do a podcast, but he won't. He's absolutely a medium and able to bring all of these consciousnesses and literally channel them through. And in this work, with the light language, which I'll just broadly say, it's the language of our soul. It literally is the language of our soul. And we have so many ways that we can express it through the spoken, or the toning, but also through beautiful images, dance. So I have a lot of movements in my light language as well. But there are other, lesser known ways that we express it, but all of it are just expressions of our soul. And so what I've recently understood about just myself and my own light language, because I suppose everybody has their own journey of how they came to it. But what I was connecting to was I journeyed back to, some original origin forms, right? Like as we separated from source and took form, I was seeing myself as the stars themselves. So not just
Mhm.
having stars in my, alignment as a soul, but like from the very first moments of creation, I was seeing myself as that particular star, and seeing the whole network of them, and that I was connected to all of the stars. And, maybe that's how the stars work, that as on a consciousness level, maybe they are connected. I don't know. But what I got was like literally, so my name Tara, the Tara part of Katara is actually star. Tara means star in Sanskrit, and together it means star spirit, amongst other things. And so when I was getting this message, so the name came years ago, but as I'm tuning in now, it's like showing me I am the star consciousness. I am able to connect to all of the stars and to help to bring that energy through, right? So how? It's just the vehicle. So whether it's through qigong and through a transmission of energy, or through the voice, like people surely are hitting some resonance with some of the things that we're speaking about, because frequency is, it's just there, it's palpable. So I did feel like all the different languages that are the sounds that are coming through, it's like, oh my God, I've never made this sound before. Because as I shift focus and tune into a different star, it feels like the frequency and what's coming through is different. So, in a way, my human self just can't comprehend how large this all is, right? Like how many stars and energies and frequencies are available, how much of that is needing to be remembered in our soul so that we can understand from that much deeper level why these energies are there. So, it does feel that way, this bigness of, grabbing onto the energies and then pushing it through into form and into a sound. So that's, yeah, what's been going on with my light language, and
I love
how it
that.
relates to what you're sharing.
You know, it's amazing because when Cygnus is for me, I would say this is dominant in your chart because I do gravitate to the undercurrents, like you know what's in the moon, what's in the Lilith, because these are those soul yearnings that no matter what you try to cover it up with or mask it with, it'll never go away. It's like
Mm.
the person who always wanted to be a singer, but went to school or got the job for everything else, the furthest career you can choose from, and they cannot get that thing out of their head. Um, and it's because it's in the soul. It's the soul wants to experience this. And the Cygnus is here as one of its traits is sound healing. And one of the things I wrote down is you have the ability to develop healing while sleeping. So if you can start inviting in the Cygnus version of yourself while you're sleeping, I think some really magical things will happen. And if you need guidance to work with the inner child or to connect with children and hold classes, I would ask them for some guidance. And there is on a bigger picture, what this star in Lilith is inviting you to do is overcome insecurity and emotional instability, and then you teach that to the children.
Yeah, beautiful. Stunning. So if these things show up and they just don't go away, as you said, because they're deep within our soul and it's a longing for it to come up. So how does that differ, or how does that relate to it being a purpose in life? How does that, and I know there might be other stars or other positions, like maybe our midheaven or north node, I'm not sure. Like, how does it relate to this undercurrent of the soul longing? How does that relate to the purpose of life showing up? Does that make sense, my question?
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying, like a life purpose versus soul purpose, or
like does it
soul
align?
journey.
Is it
Yeah. So the way I've been experiencing this, because I've also asked that question, like, well, how many purposes like do we really have?
Can we have?
How many can I actually do? How much could actually happen in one life? And sometimes if we like learn the skill, maybe I don't think there's one. Okay. So there might be a soul purpose. And I think collectively, all of our soul purpose is to help Earth ascend, to help the humans ascend and raise consciousness so we can heal the limitations. And we actually do that through our joy, through like giving value to our yearnings. You know, we're in this society that's like, well, that doesn't make you money, that doesn't, do this, but it's like, but it would make you happy, it would fill you up, it would fuel you. So isn't there value in that? And it's like where this group of consciousness of humans that really want to give value to that. So sometimes it's just a hobby. And then you might have a different career or have a different project that might be hitting your purpose. But because we're multidimensional, I really do believe our life is already layered, but it's like a gradation. It's all coming back to the same one purpose anyway, but there might be many different brushstrokes. Does this make sense? That was a very loaded question. So
I know. I only like asking big questions. Okay.
Yeah, I love big questions. Ask away.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. And I guess I know we can talk ages for it, right? Like literally, we've just literally talked about what maybe 2 stars and, 2 positions. And this is the extent of, using charts to look at ourselves, but also all the energies and what we can do to actually activate or clear, like those are, a whole series need to come.
Right.
So how do people, this is a loaded question. If we listen to, let's say, this soul pattern or something that's present in our chart, and somebody like I feel, okay, like I embody a lot of it, I can relate to the wounds, I can see how it's showing up in my life. So if somebody has their chart read, let's just focus on one particular area because, it's too many information, and they feel that that information is like news to them. Oh my God, like that, I don't feel that at all. So if they're just not in alignment with, true self, what's your suggestion? Like to, and let's just say they desire to come into alignment. Like, what's your suggestion to help people to come into that alignment, to really unlock and activate these parts that are clearly within them? What would you say? Loaded question. I know it's a big one.
Loaded question. Well, first I'd bring humor in and be like, are you sure this is the right birthday? Like, do you have the right time? Like, let's start with the basics and not make it so scary. And then try to find the wounding then. So if this is really evident, and that's usually when we have a very evident soul yearning or calling, it shows up in many places. Like, I'm sure if I looked at more of your chart, your call to be a healer is probably in lots of places. But I was drawn to focus on two. So that's two of your objects already saying the same thing in slightly different ways. So if a person was really not ready to come to terms with that, then and for sure their birthday and birth time was correct, then I would really need to look into the wounding, because where on the journey did a switch turn off? Where did this not become an option for the person anymore? Like, what happened? So then that would be maybe through a journey in the Akashic records, or just through talking to them. I know a lot of people, because we both do healing work, they come for a session, but they're still not actually like ready to really go deep. So then it's very like, you can only go as deep as the person wants you to go, kind of thing. So
Yeah, totally.
so for a situation like that, it would be key to focus on their wounding. Maybe if it's just for you as a detective to kind of do that digging and focus on their strong points, so you can build them up, make them see all the good things they're already doing before you introduce the wounding to them. So you really will have to be empathetic and compassionate for the person to really know what's going on, because there might be a few ways to respond to that kind of reaction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that advice. And the whole, deep diving. And I think, it's no coincidence that you have Pisces moon and I have whatever Lilith in Pisces. It's like always wanting to dive deep.
Right.
And I think one of the things I've realized is, I think with this big exploration energy in my chart, which I'm sure it shows up in many places, I love being able to guide people like a star, guide people to whatever map resonates with them, whatever map helps them to get into, I understand it from astrology. I understand it from human design. I understand it from looking at my, I don't know, like life cycle, the medicine wheel, if you're shamanic. So it doesn't matter what map. I've realized every time I learned a new map, I thought, oh, this is the next best thing. But I realized that actually, I feel like all of them are just aspects of something. All of them just give you a different angle and a lens. I'm particularly drawn to the galactic astrology because it helps me to connect to that, cosmic, starry, bigger picture view of things. But I love to emphasize to people, it doesn't matter where you start, even if, it's out there in here, it doesn't matter. Starting with childhood, starting with past life, it doesn't matter. Like, just to explore. Like, I'm really wanting to emphasize the explore, and in all the ways that you can explore with a beautiful guide, a mentor, a healer. Again, it doesn't matter, right? Like, find that resonance and go and explore. Like, look how fun this is. Like, I get on here and I'm like, yes, I want to know more about myself, but it's also fascinating to me. It's about learning about ourselves and how we can be better humans. And I'm sure that
There's a Sagittarius moon right there.
yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, I'm going to share where we can find Sabrina, but is there anything else you want to kind of wrap that up with before we end this particular talk and show?
see here. Yeah, I there was so much to discuss, like you already said, and we're just really talking about two points. So this work is very deep, and that's why, you know, you can have multiple sessions. It's not like you do one galactic reading and you're set. It's like you can really, it almost like going quantum, like submerge yourself into that one star and see what that uncovers and its placements. And, you know, even just focusing on one point takes you so deep. But you know, it's a fascinating topic. I think it's something that will call to people if you're ready for this, like, mind stretching and consciousness expanding information. But it's available to you if you want it. So
Yeah, I love
I'm
it.
really grateful for today.
Well, thank you, Sabrina. I'll just end this with saying that, look, Sabrina is really here to assist everyone to align with your highest available timing and timeline for the greatest good of all, to help to anchor in self-love, which is so important, but on this cellular level, because she's also a healer, and to believe in your innate healing gifts. So I do, and I will be sharing all of Sabrina's links down below in the show notes. And I'm sure this will not be the last time that we will have a chat together. So I look forward to all the starry magic that we'll create. And I'm super thankful for you to share your gifts here as well, and to be a reflection for me and all our listeners, to help them to truly know themselves and to be all that they've come here to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Katara. Thank you. Thanks for watching.